To me, it's everything.
1380 WAOK, the voice of the community. Calling 447-226-1380. Get you involved in the conversation. Still talking to Professor Muhammad about the National Reparations Summit this week at Clarkland University. I'm Professor Muhammad. Before we go to the phone lines, real quick, can you give us the rundown on how people can register and be there and be in the house and have some input on this? As I've said, I think we're past the point of needing a study commission. We just need to write the damn reparations legislation, put it in the hands of our Congressional Black Caucus, and the same way that we saw 8 Republicans shut down the government, get rid of the Speaker of the House until they got what they want. We got 60 people. We should be able to say, well, look, ain't nothing getting done in government until y'all pass this particular piece of legislation. And as you say, you have to put consequences around it, and that's how you get it done. Like I said earlier in the show, the way the black folks talk about reparations, the same way that a husband tries to kind of suggest a threesome to his wife. Like, well, maybe Sheila can come over this weekend, we'll see what things happen. Like, we ain't making no demands. We're just kind of like just suggesting it from the corner. Like, well, we never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going on. And I'm not saying we should do it, but wouldn't it be crazy if we did? That's the way we talk about reparations. So give us the rundown one more time.
Yes, sir. And Attorney Patillo, I guarantee you, and I give you my word, that what you're saying, you're exactly right. But that select committee on public policy and legislation, that's exactly what we're in the position to do. And again, when they read the declaration, they'll see that some of what you've said, we've already presented. Give an example. We've already broke it down, Attorney Patillo, a minimum of $83 trillion. A minimum of $83 trillion. Now, you see certain aspects of the black bourgeois sector who just jumped on the wagon saying it's about closing the wealth gap, and they're asking for $14.5 trillion. That's one aspect of it. There is a major land question that has to be dealt with, Attorney Patillo. Black people are operating on less than 2 million acres of land, all 45 million black people in America. And up until 1970, we were controlling over 15 million acres of land. What about the black farmers who have not been compensated, most of them, even though legislation passed more than 20 years ago to deal with the black farmers? What about HBCUs, the report that came out, how all of them had actually been underfunded? Well, that's complete reparations. And so you're right. And we have honestly quantified what that looks like in 4 different areas. We quantified it, give an example, the stolen land, that was calculated. Also, the 300 years of forced-free labor, the closing of the black-white wealth gap. And then, too, we're talking about years and years of centuries of neglect, denial, and the murder of blacks and an exploitation of blacks. That has been quantified. And it's not just the federal government that was, Attorney Patillo. They're select multinational corporations. Once they see we're organized, we thrown down the gauntlet and made the demand, as you just said, they'll come to the table. We know Wells Fargo owes us. We know there are nonprofits that owe us. Remember, Harvard University more than a year ago jumped out. It was front page of the Wall Street Journal. They have agreed to pay $100 million in reparations. Well, why did they do that? And when did they do it? Well, many of them, their staff members and some of the students got a copy of the declaration. We named them in there as one of the nonprofits, Georgetown, Cornell University, Yale, Brown University. They all made their money off the enslaved. Some of the founding members made their fortunes off the enslavement and trafficking of black people. Notice that I didn't say the transatlantic slave trade. I said the transatlantic enslavement and trafficking of black people. And so Harvard University jumped out there because they know we're coming and they know that we can go in and actually quantify what they really owe. And it's more than $100 million. And so at the end of the day, you're right. This is why the select committees we have wasted the people's time if we don't come out of those select committees with final reports and recommendations, and then too with the public policy and legislation piece, we come out of there with a draft of what that bill will look like and have them vote on it and make them vote on it and make that demand at the federal, state, and local level.
You're right. All right, let's go to the phone lines. We have Jay from New York on the line. Jay, how are you doing? All right. There we go.
Yeah.
Hey, Jay, go ahead.
Robert, I would really just like to say this. Please, when you talk about the threesome, don't let us know how you tricked the New Yorker into doing that. Just a joke. But listen, I just want to say two things. I really wanted to talk about this whole Palestinian Israel thing, but I will address this on the level of, number one, black people will never get reparations in this country until two things happen. Number one, like I think it was Charles Krauthammer said, when white people get sick of hearing this and they need a cash infusion in the country, then maybe white people will give you reparations. Number two, which for some reason I never hear in this argument, is how are you going to make them give you reparations? Because remember, they're not dealing with us like they dealt with others that they gave reparations to. You have to be in a position to make these people give us reparations. And until we get to that point to where you can hurt them in some sort of way to put forward a demand that will take the pressure off of you, then that's where they will give you reparation. And the perfect example for you, Robert, is this. Your brother, Roland Martin, does an excellent, superior job talking about black media and how these corporations don't treat black media properly. But there will never be a solution to that situation until he calls upon a boycott. You identify a company that's treating us in a egregious way, and you absolutely break their backs economically. Then you will have a standing practice on how to deal with them when they decide not to treat us fairly. And you know what the sad thing about it is? It's not like black people are asking for a large proportion. We're just asking for a small proportion, but a consistent small proportion. So it all boils down to this. Whoever you're trying to get something from, you have to be in a position to break their back. Until you can break their back, they ain't gonna pay you no mind. They just gonna look at you, laugh at you, and do what's being done to the Palestinians right now. Placate until they destroy you.
You're correct. And Professor Muhammad, what do you say to that? What will be the enforcement mechanism? Let's say they vote on it, they pass it, it's signed into law by the president. We saw with the Black Farmers Bill where they passed $10 billion for black farmers, but it has been held up in litigation from the courts for the last 3 years and hasn't been distributed yet. What will be the enforcement mechanism?
Good question. And to the caller, yes. This is why at the Indaba, I will be introducing, and my students at the Atlanta University Center know what is called the quadruple-based paradigm. They make there is a ruling class internationally, nationally, and locally. They make all of their economic and political decisions, and they determine when they will make those decisions, how and when will it help or hurt their power base, their profit base, policy base, and privilege base. Let me break that down and explain it real quickly. With reparations, when they realize that black people are organized, we have a clear agenda. We're rallying around that agenda, and they start losing seats and votes. Attorney Patillo, they're coming to the table. Let me give you another example. We saw them. We see how quickly they can move President Biden has asked for $100 million for Ukraine as well as Israel. Now, they're going to move that money because they think that it will help their power base and keep their profit base intact. So they're going to move the money. But here in America, Attorney Patillo, when corporations, give an example, say that, okay, y'all asking for reparations, we're going to ignore y'all. No, they're not going to ignore us. Attorney Patillo, with the students who are organized and youth around the country, with the phones and tablets, closed 10,000 accounts. In 2 days, they're coming to the table to deal with it.
But I think the fear that people have is, we'll say, well, we need to boycott these corporations. Then they'll just say, bring out Ice Spice to jiggle her butt. And that we'll get distracted And that's how they control us. That's how they control media. That's the discussion we've had at the beginning of the show about their ability to control the conversations that we have in the black community. But I do want to keep this conversation going after this other break, and I also want to ask, should we be attacking this from an international angle? Is this even a conversation we should be having in Congress? Should this be a conversation we're having in the United Nations, as opposed to right here in America? So let's talk about that after the break. We'll be back after the break, calling 404-726-1380, News and Talk 1380 WAOK.